Hi, welcome to the 13th floor. I'm Marty Duda, and today we're really excited to have Townes Earle coming around to play a song and have a chat.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Yeah, glad to be here.
We saw your show last night at the Tuning Fork. It was fantastic. It was great to see you with a band playing with the Sadies.
It's fun to play with that band.
Yeah, I could tell. I mean, just when they came on, because they were the opening act as well, it felt like, oh, here's a real rock and roll band. That they had the kind of nudie suits and stuff, but they look like a band,
Oh, yeah.
Not everybody always. How did you manage to connect with them?
We've known each other for maybe, 12, 13 years, something like that. We actually met through a very, very much mutual love of marijuana, and then it kind of went from there. And but we were always kind of looking, toying with the idea of working together. And when this popped up, they happened to have a record coming out at the same time that I had one coming out, and we have the same booking agent.
Right.
And so it finally worked out after all those years.
Yeah.
And I wish I wish it was something that we could have done before, because it changes the whole way of. I've had various different bands over time, and each one was fun, but there's something more freeing about being in front of these guys. I don't have to worry about a single thing that they're going to do behind me.
Uh-huh.
So I just get to be the front man, and
Yep.
that's, as somebody who performs solo most of the time, that's not what you get to do. Yeah, you're the front man, but you're holding the rhythm, the beat, putting all the notes in, you're singing, you're doing it all, and so it's nice to be able to. You'll notice sometimes I just take my hands off my guitar and I'm just like, hey, because I can.
Right. So does it? Wanted to ask you if having a band behind you like that, especially one that you have such faith in, affects your performance as far as vocals and all that stuff, and just in terms of how you deliver your thing.
I think it definitely will make you a better singer. You just know when you know that like they're gonna be there. You know that they're gonna be where they're supposed to be. It's a lot easier for you to be there because you're not worried about it. Like on songs like White Gardenias, every band that I've had before the Sadies, there's a point right before the last verse where everything just stops.
Right. And
I come back in by myself. Every band I've had before that, the drummer had to count to click, click, click. And that they don't at all. And the drummer, if you notice, Sean and Mike don't even look at each other. They just fall in at the right spot.
Yeah.
And that's an amazing thing. Yeah. It really is.
Yeah. Were you ever in a band in your early days before you were solo?
Yeah, I had various bands. I mean, I had punk rock bands when I was real young.
That's what I figured it was going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, but by the time I was 15, 15, 16 years old especially, I was fully committed into like the more old-timey music scene. Had a band called the Swindlers in Nashville for a while with a couple friends, but that was kind of the end of it for me because I decided I was going to be a solo artist after that because I did not like I didn't like the democracy
right.
Of it all. I mean, it's like it was having to deal with. I knew one thing is I didn't want to play the other guy's songs.
Right.
And I'm not a player. I don't. I'm not one of those guys people ask me to get up on stage.
Yeah.
It's like, and I always tell them, it's like, I'll get up and sing. It's like, I know that the way that I play guitar is like, looks fancy, but it's like, I don't know mathematically what I'm doing. So if you tell me, oh, this is in G and it's a 1/4 minor 3/5, I have no clue what you're talking about.
Yeah.
None.
Well, yeah, I suppose it makes a big difference as far as, how you approach what you're going to do and whatever. So, yeah. The Kids on the Street album, it's been out for a little while now. You recorded this in Nashville, did you?
No, I recorded this one in Omaha, Nebraska. Yeah.
That's interesting.
It was a big departure, and it was something that was. I worked with Mike Mogus, so
Right.
he owns his own studio, Arc Recording Studios in Omaha, and he doesn't really. In years before he had that studio, he'd work pretty much wherever. But now that
Right.
he's got his place and it's in his backyard, so he gets to eat dinner with the kids at night and stuff when he records. And yeah, so it was. I made this record in a studio with a producer I didn't know, and with players that I did not know. Except for one, I brought Paul Niehaus with me.
Yeah.
He goes everywhere with me.
Yeah, man, a wise choice. He was awesome last night again.
Absolutely.
So, and having different people that you don't know playing on the thing, how does that affect your recording process? And
it makes it strange. I mean, I will say after the first day of recording, there's a guest house where the band from out of town stays. So staying, and there was just me and Paul, and there was a discussion around the table of oh my, I don't know if this is going to work. I don't know, like, what are we going to be able to. But but it was also too. I mean, you get used to recording in Nashville. You get used to this idea. It's just like, well, yeah, bring that guitar player over. If he doesn't work, I know 100 other guys we can call.
Right.
And we were recording in a place where there was not 2 other guys to call, much less 100.
Right.
And so yeah, it was a definite uneasy feeling that came with it. But it's like you had to just kind of plant your feet and dive in as much as you could, and it was. And it turned out great. Just working with everybody was really good. I did have to do a lot of direction as far as like. Well, I'll tell you this. Me and Mike have different sources of music. He's more of he's your indie kid.
Right.
He's your total indie kid. And even though he's older than me, but he was the original of the original indie kids. Yeah. And I'm very much traditionalist, so it's like we can talk about Husker Du, yes, but when I brought up Eddie Hinton, right. Now I needed to go dig up that record to play it, but then there was a lot of stuff that he would bring up to me that I was just like, I've never heard of that, and so it was a real interesting thing, yeah.
All right. Now, one of the things that you touched on last night, probably the most intense moment of the show, was when you were introducing white gardenias, and you were referring to the heroin epidemic that's happening in the U.S. And you made quite impassioned few comments about, instead of placing blame, to kind of have some compassion for these people that are being affected by this. And I know pretty much everyone who knows you knows that you were been through all that back in the 90s as well. And I was just wondering if you wanted to elaborate more on that, because it's not really here. The drug problem is more of a meth thing than a heroin thing at the moment, but it's still a thing, Yeah, and I have a feeling the root causes are universal.
Yeah, they're the same. No matter what the drug is, what gets you there is the same. The results of what happens after you use the drug is the only difference. I mean, it's in the States where Australia has a big heroin problem, and so I think that it's like I've realized that England has a big heroin problem. Everywhere, Sweden has a big heroin problem. It's all kind of just gone everywhere, and it's just the reason that I think I've gotten so up in arms about it now is just like now we're lying to kids even more.
Right. Because
when they do heroin, they're not doing heroin. They're doing maybe 1/10% of heroin mixed with fentanyl.
Right.
And so it's like, I'm so glad I went through what I did in the 90s when we had real dope.
Yeah. I mean, well, I've never been any kind of drug user, but I've always believed that they should be legalized. And that's one of the reasons, is because at least you know what you're getting and you can control it. And exactly. I mean, people are going to do what people are going to do. It's like with cigarettes, it would be ridiculous to try and outlaw cigarette smoking. You just turn it into a black market industry.
Absolutely. Well, it's like the marijuana industry in Oregon, where I live. They have found that less teenagers are smoking weed now because it's okay to do it. It's okay, so it's not cool.
Yeah. Oh man. Now you're going to perform a song for us, and it's not one that's on the album. In fact, it's a cover.
Yeah, it's actually buried in the album.
Is it?
In the it's not
on,
listed.
You haven't put it as a third track or an
It is.
extra track on the vinyl.
It's buried in the CD.
Okay.
Yeah, only it's digitally encoded in there somehow.
Excellent. And it's a Paul Simon song.
Yes.
And you mentioned in your show last night that one of the reasons that you like to record it or like to play it is because you feel it is kind of disrespected over the years by certain people. What do you mean by that?
Well, like the people like people that grew up like Mogus and all his, like the guys that he came up with, you know. My friends too. I mean, it's like you grow up like when we were, I mean, when I was a kid, it was like you were just inundated with that, the Graceland record. It was just everywhere. It was on TV, it was on commercial. I mean, it was everywhere. Paul Simon was huge, and I think that for some reason there was people like looked at that record as I think especially like the rockers and the blues guys looked at it as world music or something like that, and it's so far from that. You know, it happens to have an African band on it, but I'll be damned if you can throw that in the slot with world music. It's he's just, what he did was he went deeper into the graveyard, and he dug up the bodies, you know, that all the way down into the South, and then took what was brought to the South and dug it all the way back up in Africa.
Yeah.
Realize that all those rhythms that we deal with are just bastardized versions of something that they came up with before us.
Very cool. Well, we'll give a listen to your version of it. Anything? Have you got anything else coming up? Plans, recording wise, or anything?
Not recording just yet. Just we still got pretty much all next year on this. You know, on this tour, we're going to take the deep winter off, and then festival season starts up in the spring in the States. So it'll be always moving. But I'll have to have I'll write another record soon. Started working on it, but it's going to be a while.
All righty. Yeah. Well, thanks for stopping by. Much appreciated.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, the Mississippi Delta is shining like a national guitar. I'm following the highway down the river through the cradle of the Civil War. I'm going to Graceland, Graceland, Memphis, Tennessee. I'm going to Graceland. Oh boy, pilgrims with families, and we are going to Graceland. And my traveling companion, he's 9 years old, and he's the child of my first marriage. And I have reason to believe we all will be received in Graceland. Back and tells me she's gone now. As if I didn't know that, as if I didn't know my own bed, as if I'd never noticed the way she combs her hair off her forehead. She says losing love is just a window in your heart. Everybody sees you blown apart, and everybody sees the wind blowing. Whoa, Graceland, I'm going to Graceland. And my traveling companions, ghosts and empty sockets, I'm looking at ghosts of empties. Reasons I cannot explain this, some part of me wants to see Graceland. There's a girl in New York City, well, she calls herself the human trampoline. Whenever I'm falling, flying, tumbling in turmoil, I see her, so this is what she means. And she means we're bouncing into Graceland. And she says losing love is just a window in your heart. Everybody sees you blown apart, and everybody sees the wind blowing. Whoa, Graceland, I'm going to Graceland. I may be obliged to defend every love and every ending. Maybe there's no obligations now. reasons I cannot explain this, some part of me wants to see Graceland. I'm going to Graceland now. I'm going to Graceland. I'm going to Graceland.